3 weeks, because so after 2 weeks, I was like, okay, I still don't have a job. Maybe I can push it. So I stayed 2 more weeks, and then like after a month there, I was like, okay, 1 more month. So and after 2 months, I had a couple of odd jobs here and there. And I eventually, I couldn't postpone, I couldn't push my plane ticket anymore because it was because of the fare. So I either used it or lose it. So I was going to go back to Mexico, and then it was my birthday, so I did this dinner party where I invited all the people I had met, and one of them was like, you can't go back, you have to stay here. You've worked so far, I'm sure you'll get a job. I was like, yeah, but I was staying with my friend's mom at the time, and I just don't feel like imposing myself anymore with these people, because they've been really kind, but I think there's a limit. And she was like, come stay with us.
Wow.
I was like, I can't do that. Like, thank you, it's so kind, but like, no. Like, you have to stay. Like, my roommate is barely ever there. He's a very generous guy. And I'll talk to him. So I call her, and she's like, okay, I talked to Pierre. Shout out to Pierre Bernard. And Melina. Her name is Melina. And she was like, you have to stay. And I was like, I talked to him. He's really cool with it. We can have the office as your bedroom. And she even said this, like, if you can't find a job in 6 months, I'll buy you a ticket back to Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like, wow. So I stayed, and within a month I had a job. I started working in this really amazing studio. It was a very tiny studio. It was 2 partners. The name of the studio was Toxa, and I was their first employee.
Wow.
And it was really exciting, because I was kind of living my dream. It's not that I never, I love Mexico, but I always had the desire to go somewhere else. And so it was really exciting, because I was living it. And then we had a series of robberies, and they started, so the first time they broke in, they stole the computers.
Oh.
So, and we didn't have any backups. And so we had this massive project. I was doing poster designs, and it was amazing. And I had to repeat, it was 7 posters or something like that. And they were very, very labor intensive, because they had a lot of elements that a lot of elements that I had to scan, and a lot of hand elements, a lot of the design stuff I did, even though it was sort of built up in the computer, a lot of the elements came from the real world, scribbles or stuff like that. And so, and we had a deadline, so I had to repeat those 7 posters, and then we got robbed again. And this time we had a backup, but they stole the backup disk.
Oh, wow.
So I had to repeat them again, and so what happened is that I just ended up having a burnout. I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I was like, that's it. And at the time, I was starting to toy with the idea of just becoming an artist.
Right.
And
so had you been doing your own work on the side at this point?
Not a whole lot. I mean, a little bit. I started doing a little bit of drawing, like color pencil drawings, and it was more than anything like a venting thing to do, like release, and I started doing a little bit of like painting and collage, but not a whole lot. And it was just when I decided to, like, I was like, this is it, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I mean, it was a grueling decision because I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to be making a living of right now.
Right.
Like, I mean, I kind of also naively at the same time thought that, okay, I'm going to become an artist and show and just sell artwork and make a living out of that. And there were certain, I mean, I think there was some positive, positive feedback from the universe because I got a solo show like in a couple months.
Wow.
And I was able to live off of my savings.
Right.
And
so that solo show was in Montreal?
It was in Montreal, yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, it's funny because I was so disappointed because I didn't sell out the show. Right. It was so bummed out. But if you look at it, I mean, I actually sold like 4 paintings or 5 paintings or something like that. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see it at the time. I was just like, I was also so pressed to, make it work because in a way, sort of like my mom thought I was crazy, and
So what was your I hate to get technical, but like, what was your visa status at that point? Like, was that a pressure on you? Like,
no, at the time, no. So when I got the design job at Toxa, I got a working visa.
Right. Yeah.
And then at the same time, I applied for the residency, and in Canada, it's a point system. So because I was already in the country with a job, I had enough points that it was just a matter of going through the process.
Because I just thinking, like, here domestically, it seems like, some of those work visas, like if you walked away from that, I think some people stay at those jobs longer than they want to because if they walked away from it, then their visa status is in jeopardy. Right.
Yeah, and that would have happened if I had still the visa, but by the time I decided to quit, I was already a resident.
Right, so it's kind of like what would be a green card here.
Correct.
Right.
Correct, so I didn't have to be held to a job. So that was not, and I mean, in hindsight, I think I would have been eligible for some sort of government assistance, but I never actually did that, and I think I was so proud at the time.
Right.
Now I think like I should have done that, but no, I didn't. I never got any. I got a lot of help from my roommate because she paid a few months worth of rent, and I paid her back eventually.
Yeah.
But she was really supportive in that sense, and there was another friend who also he loaned me some money, and he bought a painting out of pity, and so I had good friends, and then after a year of not working, and I was like, okay, you have to do something because even though you've had a show and you sold some paintings, I actually had 2 shows at the time. The second show was at a coffee shop, so I don't know if you would even consider that a show, but I was like, okay, and I couldn't see myself going back to design just yet, so I just took a job at in retail. Home decor store, and it was actually a pretty exciting time too. I had a really good time there, and I met amazing people, and again, some of them, like, I'm still friends with. It's just incredible how that has happened, even though, you know, some people have like a nucleus of friends that come out from high school, and those are their, like, their whole life, those are their nucleus of friends, and or from college. And I've collected an amazing, like, group of I've met amazing people along the way, and I'm happy to say that I'm good friends with many of them still.
Right.
And even though, like, because I'm not a guy who sends emails, but if I go somewhere and I know they're there, like, I'll try and hang out with them, and it's like just taking off where we left off.
And good for you. You travel a lot, so you have friends in every city, right?
In a lot of places, yeah.
How's your French these days?
A little rusty. Yeah, that was another thing. Like, French. When I was in high school, I really wanted to speak French. I've been bilingual all of my life because, like, I went to bilingual school. All my schooling was bilingual, and my dad's family is English descendants, but they speak English in Mexico. So even though my dad never really spoke English to us, whenever we would go to his family, like to my aunt or to my grandparents, even though as a family we would speak in Spanish, a lot of English was spoken. Anyway, I really wanted to learn French, and I studied French in high school and college. Okay. But I never really spoke it. And then when I arrived to Montreal and I started hearing I was like, what the hell are they talking? I couldn't understand.
Well, but it's because, the Quebecois accent is incredibly different.
Yeah, absolutely. And Melina and Pierre, and there was another friend at the time, Hélène, they were all very adamant that I didn't speak English. So they would only speak, for the most part, French to me. And Hélène especially, she was really patient with me. And she was like a grade school teacher, just saying like, "Oh no, you shouldn't say it like this. It should be said. It should be like this." And you know, at the job first, they would speak in English to me, but they were constantly speaking French, and they would constantly listen to talk radio in the mornings.
Right.
So, you know, by force of just being immersed in that, like, I remember the precise moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm understanding what they're saying on TV. I was watching the news with my roommate, and I was like, oh my God, I understand. It was such an incredible moment. So my French now is a little rusty because I've been in the U.S. for 10 years, so it's not as... I don't use it as much, and I don't go to Montreal as much either, even though my sister and my parents live there now. But we get to see them in other places, not necessarily in Montreal.
Right.
And if I see them, I don't necessarily... I just see them, and anyway.
No. My wife is a French teacher at high school.
Oh, okay.
And she grew up loving French and spent on and off most of 2 years in north of France and in Paris. And when we got married, I was like, I was in the business world and had all these miles, and like, okay, for our honeymoon, I don't have enough miles to get us to Paris, but I can get us to Montreal.
Yeah.
And so we went to Montreal and Quebec City for our honeymoon, and it was really sad because she wanted to use her French on the trip, and every time she started speaking to someone in French, they could tell that it, that
Yeah.
that it wasn't